Yo, what's good, guys? Today we got World War One Oversimplified Part 2. I uploaded Part 1 yesterday, but I filmed Part 1, honestly, a couple of hours ago because I had shit to do between the videos. But I just made the decision we might as well film them both because why not?
With both sides stuck in a hard stalemate, they knew this war wasn't going to be about taking territory, but about simply wearing each other down. The Allies had plenty of men to expend from its overseas dominions, and the British also started a naval blockade, so Germany couldn't import stuff, like food. Neither side really wanted a long, grueling war, though, so they both thought of ways to break the deadlock on the Western Front. Idea number one, new frontiers. When the war first broke out, Australia was quick to take German New Guinea. The Allies also quickly jumped on Germany's colonies in Africa, and particularly in German East Africa, locals were enlisted as soldiers and carriers by both sides, leading to a tragic loss of life for the native Africans.
That's crazy.
Some new combatants.
Also, why have I never in the World Wars, ever heard anything about Australia up until now? They always talk about, hey, World War One, World War Two, Germany, the US, UK, France. They never talk about Australia. What the hell was Australia doing? I don't know why in my mind I just figured Australia was just chilling out on their, remote continent, just vibing on the other side of the world. Yeah, fuck it, not our problem. But nah, Australia said, okay, y'all want to get dirty, let's get dirty.
Entered the war as well. The Allies' new friends were Italy and Japan. Japan was busy building itself an empire, so it was more than happy to take away German islands and colonies in East Asia. Italy actually had an alliance with Germany and Austria-Hungary before the war, but after some tense relations, and then the Allies promising to give them some of Austria-Hungary's stuff, they switched sides. Italy opened up a front in the mountains here, but like everyone else, they were stuck in stalemate for most of the war. The Central Powers' new friend was a struggling empire in the Middle East. The Ottomans were divided on whether to actually join the war or not, since they had been exhausted by the recent Balkan Wars. Some of the politicians who did want to join went off on their own and fired some shells at Russia, and then came back and said, whoops, looks like we're at war now.
Wow, that's fucked up. Wow, y'all arguing rather, and you just imagine that. That's outrageous. Nah. They should have just said, oh, you guys want war. Okay, you on your own. Sayonara, you exiled.
Particular concern to the British, since the Middle East was full of oil, and Britain wanted all of that oil. First, the Ottomans tried to attack Russia in the Caucasus Mountains, but they weren't prepared for the...
Also, can we talk about, even back then, oil driving all the wars? Isn't that some shit?
Particular concern to the British, since the Middle East was full of oil, and Britain wanted all of that oil. First, the Ottomans tried to attack Russia in the Caucasus Mountains, but they weren't prepared for the cold, and many of them froze to death. Then they crossed miles of desert to take the Suez Canal from the British, but that failed too. Then the Allies tried to take the Dardanelles at Gallipoli in a long and hard trench warfare campaign, but that also failed. The Ottomans blamed their initial losses on the ethnic Armenians living within Ottoman territory, and the resulting Armenian genocide led to the deaths of 1.5 million people. Then the Germans sent spies into Afghanistan to try to convince the Arab tribes there to rise up in jihad against the British and attack India. But that plan failed, partly because the spies got bored, brewed their own alcohol, and got drunk.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that, but just imagine you trying to send some spies to fuck, and you find out y'all lost because the spies got bored, decided to get fucked up. Ain't that some shit? You know what? Maybe I'd fit in just fine. That's fucked up.
All these new frontiers hadn't done much to change the war. Aware that the Allies had more men and supplies than them, the Germans knew they had to do something to break the stalemate. Before the war, there was a big conference that set out the rules of modern warfare. No chemical weapons, no killing civilians. Basically, don't be jerks. The Germans held a meeting and decided to be jerks. Zeppelin air raids commenced over British cities. They also started attacking the Allied trenches with chlorine gas, and they used submarines to sink civilian ships.
Okay, now, let me preface this by saying, I don't support what Germany did there. That's obviously fucked up. But in what way do you think everybody's just going to have a meeting over the rules of war and people are just going to follow the rules? The fuck? No. Countries, there's literally no rules in war. You can't expect That makes no sense to me personally. Like, and again, maybe I'm wrong here, but how are you really gonna expect people to follow rules when you're at war with them? Like, the hell?
One such civilian ship was the Lusitania, which had 159 Americans on board when it was sunk, further swaying U.S. opinion against the Germans. Not to be completely unfair to the Germans, the Allies also engaged in chemical warfare soon after, and they had been hiding anti-submarine weapons on their civilian ships, which let the Germans justify their attacks. Meanwhile, Austria-Hungary still hadn't dealt with Serbia, so the Central Powers enlisted some help. Bulgaria wished it was bigger and was still bitter about losing the Second Balkan War. The Central Powers promised to make all of Bulgaria's wildest dreams come true if they helped, so they signed on, and together they knocked out Serbia. The Serbian troops retreated through Albania, which was neutral but had some ties to Austria-Hungary. So Austria-Hungary entered Albania in a friendly invasion to chase down the Serbians, many of whom escaped by sea. It's 1916.
That's another thing. How do you have a friendly invasion? Someone explain, like, oh yeah, we're friendly, but we're kind of like, running through your whole place, and, we'd probably fuck you up if you refused, but we're friendly. Like, that don't make no sense either.
And a lot is happening. As if they didn't have enough enemies already, Germany added one more to the list. Portugal had been getting a bit chummy with the Allies behind the scenes, and Germany didn't like that one bit. Around the same time, the only sea battle of the war happened. Both sides had a new powerful class of battleships called dreadnoughts, but they were so expensive to build that neither side wanted to risk losing them in a battle, so they kept them in port, except for one time when they had a big fight and a bunch of them got damaged, so they didn't try that again. The UK started conscripting men to the army, so they had plenty of reserves, which is just as well because the Western Front was about to get brutal. The longest and one of the bloodiest battles of the war started when the Germans launched an attack around the French city of Verdun. The French defended it desperately, leading to hundreds of thousands of casualties. Under pressure, the French called on its allies to do something to draw the Germans' attention away, so the British started their own long and brutal fight, the Battle of the Somme, with 60,000 British casualties on just the first day.
Wow!
It's also here that the
Now that's 60,000 casualties in one day. Damn! That's crazy. Like, I'm trying to imagine 60,000... I'm trying to imagine being at war, right? And, like, watching 60,000 of my own people get murked in a day, then the next day trying to wake up and act like I really want to go fight. Like, this you gotta have all the respect for these soldiers who, given their lives or risked their lives in these wars, man. Like, God, like, it takes a certain kind of person to, like, be able to do that shit. And I know for myself, I am not that person, because I am far too selfish. I will say that now.
To do something to draw the Germans' attention away, so the British started their own long and brutal fight, the Battle of the Somme, with 60,000 British casualties on just the first day. It was also here that the British first used one crazy brand new piece of sci-fi technology. The Russians had been getting pushed back further and further into their own territory, but in response to the French call for help, they began a huge offensive, and did really well until they ran out of supplies and got stuck. Seeing how well the Russians had been doing, Romania decided now would be a great time to jump in and win the war, and then they got pounded. The Greeks were fighting amongst themselves about whether to join the war or not. The king liked the Central Powers, while the Prime Minister wanted to join the Allies. After a brief national schism, during which the country split into two, the king finally abdicated and the country reunited. With Allied help, they began a new offensive. In the Middle East, Russia was pushing into Ottoman territory from the north. The British had also made a landing in Mesopotamia to protect Persia's oil fields, and they had also sent a small army up the Tigris River to try to take Baghdad, but the army got sieged in the town of Kut along the way, and eventually surrendered. A new offensive was launched from the south with all-out desert warfare. The offensive was aided by one famous British officer, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, who helped lead the Arab tribes in a revolt that wreaked havoc on the Ottoman supply lines. By the time 1917 rolled around, everyone was exhausted. There were mutinies in the French army, the German populace was starving, and the war had drained all of Russia's supplies. There was no clear winner, and it was still anyone's war. The only question now was, who was going to break first? And the answer was Russia. Tired of not eating and mad that a crazy magic homeless guy was calling some of the shots, there was an uprising in Petrograd complete with riots and strikes. The riots turned into a full-scale revolution and a new government overthrew the Tsar. Then a few months later, the Bolsheviks overthrew the new government, and they pulled Russia out of the war. This was great news for Germany, who now only had to focus on the Western Front. But there was still one problem. The pesky United States of America was looking increasingly like it was going to join the war. America had been selling supplies to the Allies throughout the war and was getting super rich off the back of it, meaning it was in fantastic shape and was dangerous
That's
to
right.
the Germans.
See, we some business people out in the U.S., you know? Like, yeah, they all fighting. Yeah, let's go. Bring us that money. Yes. Totally. We should have just left it there, you know? But, nope. Motherfuckers had to provoke us.
So Germany sent a telegram to Mexico saying, wouldn't it be crazy cool if you guys attacked America? But the British intercepted the message, showed it to the Americans, and that was the final straw. American troops...
See, motherfuckers had to provoke us. They couldn't just let us make our money. Nope. Like, they couldn't just let us, you know, chill like some kings, you know, making in the money, selling our stuff. No. They had to try to make Mexico punch us, so that we had to, like, karate chop these motherfuckers. Like, nah, that's not cool.
Out to Europe. This was terrible news for Germany, and they knew their only hope now was to force France and the UK to surrender before the fresh American troops arrived. It was now or never, so they started one final attack. They converged their troops and hit hard at the Somme and pushed the Allies back. They hit a second time further north, then again and again. With each hit, the Germans were spending more and more resources, while the Allies were getting better and better at repelling their attacks. By the fifth punch, the Allies held the line and even pushed back. With American troops now arriving in larger numbers, the Allies launched a counterattack, and that was it. The Central Powers were being pushed back on all fronts. Bulgaria collapsed first, followed by the Ottoman Empire, then Austria-Hungary, and finally on November 11th, 1918, at 11 o'clock, Germany surrendered.
Hold that.
Treaty, Germany was forced to reduce its military, accept war guilt, and pay the bill for the war. After indescribable suffering and millions dead, the world learned its lesson and never had such an awful war again.
Yeah, they never messed with the U.S. again. We stayed amazing. You know, we didn't get stupid a couple of years later. And no, we just stayed saving shit. That's what we did. At least that's what I tell myself to sleep at night. Oh boy, did things go downhill.
Again. For about 20 years.
Yeah. Honestly, this was really cool, you know? Like, this was really... Well, I don't know if cool's the right word, right? Because a lot of people died, and that's not cool. But watching this video and, you know, the way he put things together was very good for, like, a simple-minded folk like myself to understand. And I fucked with it. I really did. So, let me know if you guys would like more of this. Like, at this point, episode 1 of this, you know, part 1 of this hasn't even been released yet. So if I get enough comments wanting me to do more, maybe, I think he did World War II Oversimplified. At least I'm going to assume so. And maybe we'll check that out. Either way, do me a favor and like the video, comment, subscribe, ring the bell. You know how YouTube works. And I'm out. Bye. With